Thank you. Recording in progress. That way I don't have to tell you all to rejoin tomorrow and do it on Saturday, so we've got a recording of it. Because I think some of you, as you go through this, you'll do the work, but what you might want to do is go back and just like do it more slowly and be like, right, okay, that's the point I want to do there. So what we're going to do tonight is talk a little bit about how to prepare for sitting down to write a proposal. Then I'm going to do proposal overview, so I'll kind of show you what one looks like, one that it's one that we've genuinely submitted, but we've had to doctor it a little bit for confidentiality. Then we're going to do the main part of the session, which is together do the live proposal writing. And then, of course, there's always reciprocity in these things, aren't there? We all live in the real world. So I'm going to take you hostage for a few moments of your time and launch my course, which is for people who want to spend some more time and work on building a corporate pipeline and getting into corporate work. And that'll be a very short piece at the end. So let's get started. Preparation. Now, what I would say about preparation is no matter how much time you think you've left to write a proposal, you always wish you had more at the end. And I know Laura's on the call who does these all the time, and she's like the master of doing it through a certain methodology. And I know she still always wishes they'd just give her like an extra day. But the reality is that, you know, some of these proposals that you're writing, the one you're going to see tonight is one that won us, I think the original order was about £75,000 worth of work. It actually led to nearly £200,000 worth of work over 2 years because they kept extending and giving us more work. So, you know, if that's the kind of value, and I'm not assuming everyone's starting at that rate. I didn't start in that place. My first one I wrote was for probably about £2,000 worth of work because I was just trying to get a couple of days with a particular organisation. So don't panic that, you know, you don't feel like you want to start writing for 80,000. But what I'm saying is, like, when you start doing this work, you will be writing bids for significant sums of money. So it is worth dedicating that time. This is your entry to that cash injection. Think about what your ideal working conditions are as well. And a kind of old-fashioned idea certainly used to be, you know, when you're doing serious work and it's detailed and it's diligent, you should sit in silence, you should be on your own, you should have no distractions. That works really, really well for me. Like, I love to work in the peace and quiet, in a nice silent place. I love to work in the morning on detail because I'm a morning person. But that actually isn't everyone's working environment. I'm married to someone who's ADHD. Silence is the worst thing for him to try and work on. He will always have, like, just now he's doing some studying. He's got the Giro on, which is a cycling race. He's got something on another screen. And actually that's a much better way for him to concentrate. So we should all get rid of the stuff we learned at school about, you know, actually concentration looks like this. Concentration looks like what works for you. And again, I like to sit peacefully and quiet. I know some people who are clients that we always have what we call walk-in meetings because their best ideas happen when they're moving. So figure out for you what that ideal working condition is like. Gather the information that you need. So when you sit down to write it, make sure you've already done all the pieces that you need to bring together, and then think about the imagery. So when you see the imagery I'm using on these slides tonight, this is very much a brand that we use for working with entrepreneurs. If you go onto LinkedIn or my Sea Change website, you'll see quite a different brand. What you won't see is any difference in who I am in either of those places. You know, I'm authentically me wherever I show up. That's been a progression in life. I used to think you had to be one person at work and another person elsewhere. Now I'm kind of like, well, you're getting me and that's what's going to turn up wherever I go. But what you see is a different brand. So my corporate brand is quite different from my entrepreneurial brand. So you might want to have a think about how your brand is positioned for a corporate market. It doesn't have to be entirely different, but you'll see some changes. And then on this session, as we work through it, what I want you to do is take note of the headings and write down your notes as we go through. So as we do each heading, think about what you would write or write some bullet points and how you're going to do that. I won't really see the chat too much, and I don't want to distract too many other people who are actually doing the writing as we go, because some people will use this session like as a briefing. Other people will use this session to do the work, so I won't go too much back and forward between the chat and distract others. So I'm going to show you a proposal overview, and we've obviously blanked out some of it. So I'm going to show you the component parts of a bid that you can use if you're putting a proposal in to somewhere, a company between somewhere of a value between £1,000 and about 80,000, you could in theory use it up to about 115,000. In reality, over 115,000, you'll always be part of a competitive tender, and you might have to use a slightly different format, but this is okay for around about that value. Like I say, this led to a lot more work, some of which you can publicly go and see what we actually did, because it's all published now. We couldn't talk about it for 18 months that we worked on it. Okay, so sorry. So the first one, obviously, you need your front page, subheader, your logo on here. This is, like I say, we've changed this over to that other branding. Next page, you're really going to have your proposal, setting out what it's going to be. And don't worry about writing these headings down just now, because we'll go through this in detail. I just want to show you the whole thing before we start doing each element of it. So you're going to put in what your proposal is. Here, you might sometimes have phases and outputs if you've got different modes of delivery. Over here, you're going to put some further detail if you need to. Then at the end, you're going to have your terms. So much are they going to pay? How long is it going to take you to deliver? And then any assumptions. And these are really important because quite often a proposal on this scale will end up as a schedule and a contract. So this is what you can potentially rely on. And then I'll show you a couple of other pieces that we sometimes use on proposals. So this one is an example of a case study. For me, it looks really strange because I see it in the different font and the different branding, whereas I'm used to seeing this in my corporate branding, so it looks quite strange to me this way. But this is where we were asked to give a case study on a particular proposal. So these are the kind of 2 pages. We just let some people in. These are the kind of 2 pages we put together of narrative around the case study, and then we were being asked to support pilot projects. So we put together some potential lessons that we could show. And then the other thing that you're quite often asked to put in is CVs. So if you're the person delivering, if you're not selling a product, but if you're the person who is delivering and you're going to be asked for some information on yourself, you're quite often asked just to put a CV in. So that's kind of the meat and bones of the overall proposal. So let's start doing one together. So grab your pen, paper, your Remarkable. If you've not bought a Remarkable, best investment ever. It's an electronic notebook, or if you're using your laptop, that's fine. As we'll now go through the detail of writing the proposal. So you're going to want a front page, which you're going to have. The proposal is essentially what you're offering, and you might put the name of the company on there as well. So for this one, I know that this one, when we put it together, said better value railway proposition for Network Rail. And then we had a subheader, which was something like delivering better value in rail projects. And obviously it had our Sea Change branding on it. You can tell from the fact that this is a picture that it was obviously railway. Whenever we put a proposal together, we always put a local relevant photograph on the front, because we want our customers to know that actually we know you, we know what is relevant to you, and we put something on that recognises that. So that's what we do there. In the subtitle, we always have what's the benefit to the client, because that's a little bit about that subliminal messaging of the first time they open it. We're saying these things to them. We know you, we know what you need. Obviously, you need to put your company logo on, and then you can put your branding on as well. So take some notes about what you think you would put, because your proposal front page is generally your first impression. Moving on to the next session, this is really where you're writing what it is you're going to do for them. So you're going to put a heading up here. So I've left this heading on because that bit wasn't really confidential. So we just put up there, this proposal is to provide consultancy services as the Network Rail sponsor of the Better Value Railway project. If you're building a railway, I would recommend Better Value Rail to you. It's a great website that we built, but I suspect it's probably not what any of you are doing. And then in here, what we wrote was very much what services we were proposing to deliver. So what were we proposing to offer that client? And we listed out here. And so I can't show you the content of that. It's probably not that relevant. It is confidential. But here's what we wrote. what we were going to do, for whom, when. For this one, we did have to write why. So we had to write why we would be doing the work in the way that we proposed, where it was going to take place, and how much. It's all written in really succinct, clear business language. And for this one, we had four phases that we were suggesting. One is that we would carry out research for them. Then we would give them some insight back. So we would reflect to them, this is what we suggest that you need. Then we would write some guidance, and then we would review it with a challenge panel. We've also used this template for coaching, and I've given an example here of exactly how we've written that out. So this is a sample that this is the same template that we used to do a proposal for executive coaching. And what we had in was pretty much this. This is a proposal to deliver 6 sessions of executive coaching for Mr. So-and-so in support of the massive difficult project. And then we wrote in the likely outcomes will be, the key themes to be discussed are, we wrote those down. And then at the bottom we said there'll be 6 times 2 hour coaching sessions. That was over 6 months at monthly intervals, times to be agreed between the 2 participants. And then we put what the price was, which I think that was £700 per session for those. And then the coach will be, and that was me. So that's a really succinct way that you can put your proposal together. And I think when you're working with consumers, you're used to having, lots of words, lots of sales page, lots of marketing information. By the time you're coming to the proposal, they're really looking for this area to be quite succinct. If you know that you have to prove a little bit more about yourself, that's where you want to push it into your case studies and your appendix and your CV, because at this point, people reviewing corporate proposals, think of the volume of reading they're doing. Like I used to get 1,250 emails a week, and I would probably read, I don't know, over 100 proposals a year, and some proposals I would read could be 500 pages because we'd be looking at massive projects. So really by this stage, I want to have a fair idea of if I'm happy with this or not. Like, is this what I want to go for? Because if it is, then I would go to the detail, but I'm not going to read through lots and lots of detail if you haven't caught me with this. And there's a key acronym that we use in this, which is called BLUF, bottom line up front. So when you're writing for corporate, always put the bottom line up front. And that's whether it's an email, whether it's a text message, or whether it's a proposal. Just remember BLUF. Not buff, which I once said to someone, and that in Scotland means that you're naked. It's not about nudity. So this is your really important piece. And I would say, there's a joke, I don't know if it was Oscar Wilde or someone, but there's a famous writer who said, I was going to write you 100 words, but I didn't have time, so I wrote you 1,000. And that is true, the ability to write, shortly. I'm a wordy person, so this is writing 100 words, much harder than 1,000 for me. But this is where you want to spend the time, really getting it tight and really getting it neat, because it's so critical. If you've got quite an extensive piece that you've been asked to put together, so it could be that it's something a bit more complicated, then you can continue to put details on this next page. So if they have asked you in your proposal to reflect their remit, then you can write in, we have been asked by X company to deliver a solution that solves X problem. Then you would write, our proposal is to answer this solution to answer this problem with this solution, our patented method, our 4 consultants, our whatever it is that you're going to offer. And you can put a bit more detail in here. Describe what you offer and all the component parts of it, and finish by the benefit to them. Remember, corporate organisations, very, very benefit driven, very benefit led. And then in both cases, you're describing what they'll get in terms of outputs and outcomes. Now, outputs are things, so physical things, post-its, railways, products, reports, 5 meetings, 4 workshops, they're all outputs. Outcomes are the results that they get. So that would be better staff retention, engaged employees, socioeconomic growth, whatever they are. So that's the difference between the outputs and the outcomes. Outputs generally are very measurable. Outcomes tend to be less easy to measure and delivered over a much longer time. But it's good for you to think about what are you offering them in those two terms, because it just helps you write it really neatly. Excuse me, I'm just going to have a drink. You won't always have to have this session. For example, if you were offering to do a talk or a batch of coaching, you wouldn't necessarily need this second level of detail. But I just wanted to show you that's a way you can do it. And then this looks like the simple part at the end. This is the bit when I work with clients, this is the bit they hate writing generally. And they sometimes have it all through the proposal and it gets a bit messy. But I think put this all at the end, put it all in one place, and you just write it in a very business-like way, because you're writing it to a business, they are fine with that. And what you want to write in here are, I call them the crucial details. They're the terms. And these are the kind of words people will quite often ask you for, you know, your rates. Quite often people say, drop me a proposal with your rates. This is what they mean, how much are you charging them? So sometimes when it comes to a rates card, you, as you're doing this work more and more often, you'll actually have developed a rates card and you just pull the information from it. Never share your rates card with a supplier, because you're not looking to show them all the range that you work at. You're going to draw from that and put in what your rate is. So for this one, this is a consultancy proposal. So these are the kind of things I would write in. Lead consultant day rate, £16.50 per full day. Lead consultant for this work will be X person whose CV is included in this proposal. Day rates and CVs can be provided for other associates on request and as required. Or sometimes we'll just give them a price. So recently we were doing 2 strategy days for an organisation we work with. So it wasn't really a day rate. They basically said, can you help us? We are struggling to embed our objectives and our strategy. What would you suggest? Can you put as a proposal together? So we put a proposal together that essentially proposed over 2 days, 6 months apart, a type of work we would do with them. And actually we just gave them a rate for it. So we just said, it's £3,500 for that work. So it was sort of 2 6-hour days probably, with some follow-up support. So that's all you're really describing there. Sometimes they will give you a form, depending on how they do procurement. They'll give you a form or an Excel spreadsheet and say, can you put your rates into this? Don't worry if that's what happens. It's just because the system they use for procurement exports the numbers from Excel into their system. It's not any more complicated than just writing it on the Word document. So that's what you're going to put up front. If you were offering 3 or 4 different people, you would put the rate for each person there. And then you would generally put a total cost. So if it was, you know, lead consultant for £16.50 per full day for 100 days, you would put in, and the total cost would be. Then you want to put in your time frame. Now, I've kind of showed you how we've broken up one that's a bit more complicated into different phases. Sometimes we'll have one sentence in there which will say, this work is anticipated to last 12 weeks with 1 consultant at 2 days per week. And it can be as simple as that. The reason I've showed you this one is because this was a type of work that we weren't entirely sure how long it would take, because there were so many multiple interfacing parties. So we'd actually said to the client, what we're going to do is put you in a proposal for a worst case scenario, but we're going to work with you on an emerging cost basis. And if we can do it in less days, we will do it in less days and only bill you for the amount. And that's called an emerging cost contract. And that means you pay what it costs up to a maximum amount. The alternative, the one I was talking about where we did the strategy for someone at 3.5, that was a fixed price. So if it took me a day to deliver it, or it took me 5 days, they were paying £3,500. And that's the difference between your emerging cost and your fixed price. Always think carefully about what option you want to offer the client. Sometimes they'll be very specific and ask you. So in your time frame, sometimes you'll actually have a start and a finish date if you already know that, or you might propose when you want to deliver it. I would normally, in the time frame as well at the moment, I would put in when my price is good to. So I would say this price is valid for 3 months. So at the moment, there's a lot of uncertainty in the market. The Great Resignation is very difficult for employers. So actually rates for a lot of work are going up for people like us. So at the moment, I only hold a price for 3 months, because I know if suddenly the supply drops even further and the demand gets higher, then I'll go back and look at my pricing in that particular market. So I generally won't hold a price for more than 3 months. And then down at the bottom, really, really important to write your assumptions. What are your pricing and what are your timeframes based on? So if you know they have to give you an answer within 6 weeks, 3 months, whatever, then you obviously can't necessarily hold the days available for them. So you might want to put in, assumption includes work starts within next 4 weeks, 12 months, whatever it is. Here I've shared some of my assumptions with you. So all my day rates for all of my customers in the UK exclude VAT and they exclude my expenses. So that just be really clear about that, because if you're working for a client who then says, oh, so you'll be in London that whole week, you need to know whether they're paying for you to be in London, or whether, different if you already live there, or whether they're expecting to pay your hotels for it. So it's just better to be upfront about it. Travel and accommodation expenses I've put here can be provided at cost or fixed price. So let them know, are you happy to add it onto your day rate, or are you going to charge them what it costs? At the moment, we've actually removed the fixed price option from travel from all our overseas clients, because it's too volatile. So we don't take any risk on overseas travel at the moment. In the UK, we're happy to provide it at cost. No expenses charged for travel within Greater London area. That's specific to me because I have lots of London-based clients, and they generally are government clients in the UK, so they don't want to pay for cross London, but it's up to you. They're your assumptions. This one is a really important one. If you're relying on anything from inside the organisation for you to be able to deliver your work, make sure you put it in your assumptions, because if someone comes back at some point and says, hey, you were meant to be doing that thing, and you say, yeah, but I'm still waiting for X, Y, or Z from inside your organisation, you want to have made that really clear up front. So if you need access to people, to a meeting room, you might need access to a system. We quite often need access to people's like their email server. Then be really clear that that's what you need. If you need a resource as an ongoing liaison, make sure you put that in as well, and be clear that that dependency is on them, because you can be really keen to win the work, and that's great, like people love that, but you still have to make sure your needs are met in order for you to deliver the work, because it is a reciprocal agreement that you're entering into here. And then again, state whether it's a margin cost or fixed price here, so that if they decide halfway through it, they want some extra work, well, that's scope change, and that's got to be change controlled. So you would want to be clear what the upper limit on what you're actually delivering for comes to. Sorry, I'm going to pause there and ask if we've got any questions you want to ask on any of the slides that we've gone over, because these are essentially, if you can fill in all of those headings, you've got a really good basis for a strong proposal to send in to any corporate client. Does anyone want to ask anything? I'm going to open up the chat so I can see. And you can feel free to either go unmute yourself and ask, or put a question in the chat.
Carol, with these proposals, would you ever just send a proposal at this level cold to somebody that you know deals with that sort of thing in the company? Or is this the sort of thing that you would send on request for a proposal?
So I send these on request, because I don't send any cold proposals to organisations. That's just part of our policy decision, that we never cold propose. But if you are going to send a proposal cold, you can definitely send this format. So we have a client who uses this style, and she actually does send in this format. And what she does is she's got like a really nice covering piece that she puts in. She actually sends to slightly smaller corporates, so it probably lands a bit better. And she's got a nice covering like email with a little embedded video in it, so you can use it for either. But I personally don't, because I don't cold propose.
Okay, thanks.
Nicola, did you want to ask a question?
Yeah, please, Carol. It kind of links a little bit to that question, but I guess it's more if you've had a call with someone, say you've had a business development call. So I'm a health and wellness coach. So say I'd spoken to a potential lead in a business, and then we'd had a good conversation and they'd asked for a proposal, but we weren't really at that stage of knowing it was because they were really considering going ahead. Should there be an element in there of kind of like a sales pitch, you know, some of the background? I think in the introduction I'd put in the group today, when I said I had a background working at Nike, you'd commented saying to really lean on that and put some of that experience in. So would there be a place to put anything like that in, where you're still trying to persuade and you know, get them to be really keen to see why they should work with you?
Yeah, definitely. What I would do is I would put that in as like a case study at the end. So I would flag, let me just turn the chat off and go back up and show you on this. I'll show you where I would mention it. So right up here, somewhere in here, I would put a really bold statement in that says, so if you're putting in like a health-based proposal and you wanted to flag your Nike piece, I would put in, please see Appendix A for details of X work that we did at Nike. And then I would have in, if you see the one that we had here, so this was for railway work in the railway world. It's not my best project ever, but I'm probably best known in railway world for Borders Railway reopening, and Better Value Rail is all about reopening railways. So that's why we put in this case study at the bottom, because we knew we couldn't put it up front, but we put that in to say that this is the kind of stuff we've done, and that's exactly what I would suggest you do, Nicola. I think that will really work well, especially when you've got like a big recognisable name like that in your field. When you say you've got a case study about your work at Nike, people will immediately go and read it.
Okay, yeah, that's great. Thank you.
I would do that. Now let me just see if we've got any other questions. Liz, could you receive a PDF copy of this template? Yes. And I wonder how I can make it edit. Oh, well, I suppose if it's editable, it wouldn't work because it will be stuck on our branding. Yeah, let me speak to my designer person and see. But you can certainly, this template is our intellectual property. So you can, if I send you a PDF of this, you can copy it, because I can send you the PDF without explicit consent for you to do that.
That was the only thing, because I'm doing it on Canva while we're speaking, and I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't missing anything.
Yeah, definitely. We're happy to share this. We've got a version we use for clients, but it's part of a system, so I don't know how easily I can pull it from that, but I can definitely share a PDF of this with everyone who signed up for the masterclass. I don't think that'll be a problem. Okay, is it okay to send us a PDF? I would always send a PDF, Nicola, and I'll tell you why. If you send a Word document, someone can alter it, either deliberately or by mistake, or genuinely by mistake. So anything that I send out as a commercial proposal, no one can alter it except me, because I don't want them to come back and go, oh, I think that day rate was 950, and we think, I don't think it was. I think it was 1650 or 1000 or 450, whatever it is, you know, the rate. So I would always send a PDF. Okay, let's see if we've got any other questions. So what I would say is you're all in the group anyway. So as you start to work through this, if there are things that come up that you think, I'm just not sure what that meant or what I would put there, then definitely let me know. Just ask the question in the group. And if you are a coach, any kind of well-being consultant, or if you're a speaker, then your appendix, you want to have your profile in there. So you want an absolutely superb 2-page profile with a photograph of yourself, like a good photograph of yourself that you like, because it's always good to use photos of yourself that you like, because otherwise it's just dark energy when you're like, oh, I have to use that photo. Get a photo you like, put that in as your appendix, and then and remember, you're not writing a CV to get a job, you're writing a CV to win the proposal. And not everything has to be in it. Like, people aren't, it's not like when you know, the old fashioned way of recruiting people for a job was you'd get their CV and go, are there any gaps? Let's find out what they were doing those 2 weeks. That, you know, that's not here. So if you think, well, I did something that's not relevant, just omit it, because that in a proposal, they're not looking to have your absolute record of your history from the day you left school. They're looking to see what have you done that's relevant to what we're buying here. So it's totally fine to do that. Deb, so you're asking what would be classed as a day 7.5 hours? Yeah, so normally actually down here in my assumptions, I would specify what a day is. So we mostly do consultancy work, do some other stuff, but mostly we do consultancy or training. A consultancy day is 8 hours, and we always have to give the caveat, because this is how our market works, that more than 8 hours in a day will not be charged as extra. So if I'm working as a consultant and I do 10 hours that day on certain types of contracts, that's just a suck it up basically. If we're working on a batch of hours, so sometimes we'll win a contract for 100 hours, then what we will say is it basically won't be day rates. What they'll get is from us that it will say lead consultant rate is X per hour. This contract is for a maximum of 100 hours, and that works slightly differently. When it depends also what country we work in. So some countries have an 8-hour day, the UK. When we work in Canada, it's quite often a 7-hour day. So it does just depend, but you specify. Sometimes they will come back to you and say, oh, our working week is X hours, so our working day is that. I wouldn't be worried about it. Yvonne, if someone wants to book you to speak for 1 hour in person, would you still charge a half day? I personally charge a day if they want me to go and speak for them, and I've got some clients who also charge a day, because unless it's a very, unless it's the room next door, it's going to take a day of your time to do it. Like, it takes that amount of energy. You're not going to turn up 5 minutes beforehand, and you're bringing all of you to that 1 hour talk. So I generally charge a day. If you're looking at if I was looking to enter a new market, I might be like, oh, well, I'll try and get myself in here. Like, that might be a market entry strategy. But generally, you want someone for an hour, you're paying for a day, because what they're paying is for the time that you give up as well. And you're generally not that productive doing a talk elsewhere. Okay, any other questions? I think we're good. So I'm going to move on. Oh, I thought another question popped out. There it wasn't. I'm going to move on and tell you a little bit about my course launch, because I am launching a course tonight. We've actually just opened the cart on it, and it is for sale. Very exciting. This is not generally the way that we train people. We do training and teaching all over the world. Actually, it's a core part of the business, but we generally don't actually do it direct to consumers. We generally don't have anything available direct to consumers. So this is quite exciting to be able to offer it for the first time. The magic of the internet has made that happen. So it's called the Corporate Method. It's a trademarked method. You might, if you look down the side here, see that the words actually spell out corporate, which took more energy than was really necessary, but sometimes I like to think of things like that. So what is it? It's a 10-week course. Starts on the 31st of May, because I don't like to hang around. So we start on the 31st of May. There are 9 live top modules to it, and these are the modules here. You'll recognise that you've already been working on like a condensed couple of the beginning elements, which are in that Confirm Your Why. A lot of that has really been what we'll be looking at in the beginning of this week during the challenge, but we will go much deeper into that to really figure out, in that space, we start to figure out your entire pipeline for 3 years worth. So 9 top modules. I teach all of the modules, and in 1 week there will be just a bit of time to catch up, consolidate before we all move on together, because the idea is at the end of these 9 weeks, you'll actually have a whole strategy that you'll be able to implement to have 3 years worth of your pipeline flowing in from corporate work. And that will work for you whether you're going to do part corporate or full corporate. It will work either way, because when we come to the piece here that we're refining your strategy, you'll already be thinking, how much of this do I want to have in my business? How much time do I want to spend? And we can work that out. And it might be that actually you want to transition at some point as well. There'll be a weekly live Q&A with me at the end of each module. And actually, I'll be travelling internationally for some of it. So I'll be delivering them from all over. I tend to do that anyway with corporate work. So I have a few clients that will go, where will you be this week delivering from? And it's quite a bit of fun. So, and sometimes we have them guess, we have some props, but we'll see whether we do that. There's also a private Facebook group, because I recognise that some of you might want to keep it quite private, what you're actually doing. And I know some of you have private chats with me about the stuff you're developing, because you don't want it out there. And we are used to working in highly confidential environments, so that's not a problem. And we've got some bonuses worth more than £2,000. So what are they? So first one is a masterclass with Mary Ann Smith on networking with impact. Mary Ann is the absolute bomb when it comes to networking. Like, I'm chatty, I like people. Like my grandmother used to say, oh, you'd talk to the dogs in the street. And now I think, why would you not? Dogs are lovely. Like, they're dead friendly. But Mary Ann takes it to the next level. There's a restaurant I've been going to for 20 something years. I go all the time. And Mary Ann and I went there once together. And when we left, she knew the name of every person who worked in there, and they all knew her. And I couldn't stop laughing. So it was like, I've been coming here for years. I knew one person in there's name. I knew Paolo's name. That was it. He didn't know my name, didn't know any of us. So Mary Ann is actually just a master at it. So she's going to come in and do a masterclass on networking with impact, because if you want to grow your corporate pipeline, then what you want to do is grow your network. Like, your network is truly your net worth when it comes to this. And it will get you into really not having to do much cold selling to corporate, because you'll get to know people. We'll do another masterclass as well with Chantel Davidson, who writes magnetic copy. And Chantel, some of you might know from the consumer world, she works a lot in the online world copywriting. Actually, her original background was actually writing for corporates and writing their marketing. So she's very good at being able to look at both sides of it, and give you some great tips on some of your writing, because you want to get some of your materials in a position where corporates read it and go, I want to work with you. I'm also going to bring in one of my associates to do a live Q&A, and she's going to tell you the truth about working with corporates. She always says that she's less corporate than me. I'm not sure that's true. I think she's just more candid about the behind the scenes stuff than I am. So she's going to tell you a little bit from her experience as well of working with corporates. We both work together as associates, and we both have our own businesses, but she's had some real adventures as well. So she's going to talk about that. I'm obviously going to give you a copy of my book, The Gap in the Middle, and a nice notebook to go with it. I'll even sign the book, which feels like a massively ego-indulgent thing to do, I have to say. It's made me laugh, that. And we'll also do a proposal writing workshop where we'll work on it. We'll actually send you a template in advance for you to give us some details, and then we'll talk through it as a group, what exactly you should be putting in, like how you're going to position this, how you're going to price it. And there's always got to be one more bonus for people who are action takers. Like, I truly believe action takers reap rewards in corporate work. Like, that has been the key to my success, is just going and getting the work. When people are like, oh, but Deloitte always win that work, and oh, but these people always win that. I'm like, okay, maybe it's time to change. Like, fortune favours the bold, I have to say. So I had to put one more bonus in, which is this one. For the next 24 hours while our course is on sale, there is a bonus, which is that everyone who signs up will come an in-person strategy day. And you might have guessed from my accent that I'm not from London. So we'll actually have two of these. We'll have one in London and we'll have one in Glasgow, and you can choose whichever one you want to come from. The one in Glasgow will be in the Glasgow Art Club, because that's our corporate sort of outpost up here. And the one in London will be somewhere equally lovely. What we'll do together is refine and plan your 3-year corporate strategy to make sure that when you leave, you're implementing confidently.
Oh,
someone want to ask a question? No, sorry.
So what's Jamie doing then?
Oh, I think it's just someone not on silent. I don't know if I can mute other people. So you can come to either Glasgow or London. And what I would tell you is that standalone, when we do a strategy day for clients, we charge a one-to-one client £10,000.
Is he in Canterbury?
Because we know that a standalone.
Well, trouble is, I can't get his bike in my car.
I'm going to try and find who's not mute and mute them.
And I can't take the Fiat because of the handbrake.
With a Fiat. I can't see who's on mute. Apologies, folks. So what I'm going
It's
to...
Tracy Allport.
Sorry,
That's who it is.
person. So standalone, we charge £10,000 because we know that our clients will get that back generally on their first order, and they generally do. When we do it as a group, it's £1,000
Maybe
per person.
maybe
but we're
save the
gonna add it
conversation
into
for when you're
this
out
as a
tomorrow,
bonus.
because then at least he's going to be a little bit more
Is it
amenable.
John?
Maybe he just doesn't see a problem with it. I went into
Yes,
him this
whoever's-
morning and I
whoever's
said, "Do you
not
want
on
some
mute, if you
breakfast?"
wouldn't
And we
mind
got
going
shower
on mute.
first. It's like, oh yeah, I'm just here at your beck and call. I don't have to make you breakfast.
Okay, apologies. I found the
No,
person. Apologies for that, but I think when we do the recording, we'll take that bit off at the end. Deb, you're laughing. I was on a call recently where someone hadn't muted, and it was like the first call we'd all met, and the person went, "Oh no, it's one of those type of events where everyone has to put their camera on and say hello to each other," and then realised she was not on mute. And I tell you, I will never forget that woman ever. It was hilarious. I thought, I wonder if that was planned to make an impact, but I don't think it was. Okay, apologies. I'm going to go back to just sharing my screen for the last bit here. Current slide. Well, there you go. Sonny's, you just got to play through the tech, haven't you? So that's my course. What I would say is some people have already joined up. So I've already got 6 people in there. Hopefully some of you are going to join. I haven't made a payment plan for this because it's a beta launch. So it's only going to be £997, including VAT this time around. So it's less than £1,000. And what I would say is, if that feels like a massive stretch, I would rather you wait just now. Like, stay in the free group, rewatch the challenge videos, do the proposal, because if £1,000 feels like a massive stretch, committing to this for the next 3 months is probably not the right action to take right now, because corporate work, like I was actually exchanging emails with someone earlier today saying sometimes you can be in a couple of days, a couple of weeks, sometimes it can take months for a particular client. What we'll do is show you how to work out a pipeline so that work just continues to flow in once it starts, but you're not necessarily going to make £1,000 back in the first week. That's really unlikely to happen. So I wouldn't want anyone to think, oh my goodness, I'm going to sign up to this and a week later I'm going to be rich, because it's a little bit of a slower burn than that. So that's why we've not gone down the road of payment plans. So my cart is open for a week. We've got nice 24-hour bonuses, and then we've got other bonuses also if you need a bit longer to think about it. And you are very welcome to join me. But I reckon that we've lost 2 minutes to time just from having a little bit of an eavesdrop on someone else's situation, which is a bit unfortunate. But I just want to say, for everyone who's been along all week and been messaging me, it's been absolutely fabulous. Like, your energy is so in the right place for doing this kind of work. So whether you come into the course or whether you decide to go off and do this on your own, like, keep me posted, continue to ask for advice, and let me know how it goes, because there are so many ideas there that I just look at and think, I know so many of my clients who will buy that, or so many other places in the corporate market who definitely want you to come in and work with them. So thank you very much for your time. I hope we've finished this week with something useful that you can go away and implement. I'm going to quickly check the chat questions just to see how many times will I launch the course. I will only launch it once per year because it has to balance again existing commitments to our corporate clients and our one-to-one clients. So we'll pretty much launch it once per year maximum. Sarah's asking how much was it. It's £997, so £997, and that includes VAT. We're going to pick up the VAT this time around. And lots of thank yous and people that can't wait to get started. Thank you. I'm really glad it's been useful. I wanted this to be a really action-packed week, and I hope that has been for you. So I'm going to say good night now. Thank you all for your time, and take care, folks. Have a good weekend. Bye.